Let's move to our podcast, and let's try to understand the sanctions environment,
Sure.
which, as you can see, with did you happen to see the conversation between
Yeah,
Zelensky and Trump,
yeah. It
which was
was
so
so much.
funny
So
and so awkward,
right, right,
and I can't even believe two world leaders. I mean, just one world leader acting
right.
like
Zelensky did
a
not spoke at all, right? He just kept listening, and it was so
yes,
much
yes,
humiliating,
yes,
and for him, right?
very humiliating, very cornered by everyone in the
Right,
room.
and
And you can see the people who are working with Trump, they are also like they want to be on the good side, so they will only support whatever he's saying, and you could see that happening.
right,
And well, it's a good enjoyment for all of us from other countries.
right.
But yeah, it's a very strange situation that we saw. In fact, I thought it was a video made by AI. I couldn't believe it.
Actually,
It was, yeah, yeah, yeah.
there was also sketch comedy in SNL, Saturday Night Live. So I suggest you watch it
Ah,
in YouTube. It's more funny than the actual
yeah, I
conversation.
saw it. Yes, yes, I saw it. Yeah.
It's really funny. And
It is.
and this and again, that Nepal is in gray list, right? So
Yes.
now Trump has like he has cut off the all the funds. So there was like he has stopped providing funds to USAID, and and also there was a MCA project, MMC, sorry, MMC
MC.
project, MCA. I always confuse multilateral something.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so
Uh-huh.
there was a huge project which was financed by US, and it was also been stopped by on
For
the order.
Nepal.
Yeah, yeah, on the order of Donald Trump, right? He was actually saying that this is a fraud, right? And because of that, and currently Nepal is also in a gray list. Okay,
Yes.
and this will have a very huge impact for developing countries like us. I will tell
Yes.
you, I was in a AML conference yesterday. I met this
Yes.
person who was running a hotel or something,
Mm-hmm.
event manager. He was an event manager,
Mm-hmm.
and he
Mm-hmm.
said that like almost 50% of Kathmandu hotels are out of job because of the cutting of the funding to USAID, because a lot of programs in this hotel were being organized by USAID and other donor agencies, and they have actually let go of a lot of employees, and many houses in Nepal are like they have cancelled the rent lease with a lot of houses in Kathmandu, and since Nepal is already in the grey list area, and because of this will impact economy in a longer term, right?
Yes. Yes.
And
Very true. Very
we
true.
are today we are talking about the topic called topic sanction, right? And most of the sanction provisions are motivated by this political beliefs, standard, or this
Yes.
ideology, right? So yeah, that's my take on this subject matter. So one who is
Very
more
rightly said.
right,
Uh, Today, sanctions is being used as a way of political statement, and getting the other country to agree to certain policies by twisting their arm in
right,
a way. And Donald Trump, as we have seen earlier as well, when he was in power, he did the same thing. So there will be nothing new. It will be the repeat of the same things that he will continue to do. And uh, and uh, it will have a ripple effect to the economies of India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, and all these neighboring countries that we have. Definitely it will.
right. And I think like after that conversation with Zelensky, he has completely stopped all the funding, right? War funding. So I think that he will
Mhm.
remove the sanction levied against Russia also. I'm not sure.
Very good point, Kiran, and that is what is running in my mind as well. that we already know that Trump has a soft spot for Putin. We know that. We understand that relationship. Trump is a kind of a person who is a narcissistic person, who only thinks about himself and his own interest. And since Putin is a very similar sort of a personality, they both complement each other. And Trump will definitely to try to form a good relationship with Russia. And I feel that sanction environment, although it seems like that Russian sanctions are increasing as per the Comply Advantage report, but maybe in a year or two we will see some radical changes.
Right. So yeah, so we like we are so we like started on this topic about sanction. So okay, let's build up from here. So we'll start with other conversation regarding sanction. So currently there are two major sanctions which are applied to this. Sorry, there are the sanctions been applied to these two countries. One is North Korea, another is Iran, right? And there are other lot of sanction, and many financial institutions find it very difficult to navigate around this sanction provision because it's a lot of complicated. It is very complicated, and I'll give you an example. So when I was working in the bank, there was this bank, Suburbia Bank of Russia. So this was sanctioned, and it was sanctioned for it was put in the sanction because of some kind of a conflict between Russia and Ukraine. So it was OFAC had put it in on a Ukraine sanction list, something like that. So what we did was we what happened actually was there was this transaction, and it was like a trade transaction, and the payment has to go from here, the importer, to the beneficiary through Suburbia Bank. So beneficiary and applicant checked out well, right? But the bank was sanctioned. So what we did was we stopped the transaction. Now the person from the business, he came out the the paper report, or kind of a report, which detail about the all the sanction provisions uh, levied against the that Suburbia Bank. And when I he handed it to me, and when I started to reading that paper, started to read that paper, there were like some provisions, like what things that bank is not allowed to do. So one was like it was not able to raise capital and other
Mhm,
things, financial instrument,
mhm.
but there was no provision regarding like it cannot make any payments regarding trade payments, right? So as a result, after we became clear about those sanction provision, we had to let that transaction uh, you know
Process.
yeah, process. So that's why, because many people think that when you find this any entities in a sanction list, you need to stop the transaction, hold the transaction, or file the STR. But it's lots complicated than that, right? You have to actually identify what kind of sanction is levied on that entities or person.
Mhm,
You have to study
mhm.
that. Otherwise it will if you took a like a blanket policy around the sanction, it will actually hamper your business also. And that's why this sanction thing is quite complicated, and a lot of people,
Very rightly said. Very
right,
rightly
and
said, Kiran.
lot of
It
compliance
is
for,
all the devil is in the details, as they
right,
say. And this is exactly what the bank that I work with is somehow overlooking these kind of things. There's a blanket ban whenever a country or a institution appears on the list that we are dealing with. There's a blanket ban on not processing the payment. But
right,
as you said, that there are exceptions, and if those exceptions are met, you can actually process the transaction. So certainly there's a lot more to it that meets the eye. And um, since my bank does has a zero risk tolerance,
right,
uh, we are very strict with the sanctions part of it. We don't
right,
want to get into the crosshairs of OFAC
right.
and OFC. So yes. That's a very good point. Very
right?
good point.
Because you see, there is like a travel ban, because there are sanction is also different categories, right? It's
Yes.
about economic sanction, then there is a travel ban. Let's say in Iran, any American go to Iran, there is no big issue. As a tourist, you can go there. But in North
Mm.
Korea, there is a travel ban, right? You can, as an
Yes.
American, you cannot go to North Korea. It's completely banned. So if you want to go to Iran as a tourist, you can get a like a USD exchange, or you can take a USD dollar or whatever, right? But in North Korea, you cannot do that. So, uh, so we have to analyze this factor also. Let's say there was this case in my bank. So there was this person who was going to Myanmar, right? And so somebody came to me. Since I was a head AML safety, and he said to me what to do with this. Okay, and we looked at the details, and then we found like a very interesting fact, because so we're talking about that Myanmar situation, right? So
Yes.
then I started to dig up on Myanmar sanction and and the situation over there. So I found that like many Nepalese were actually I found that many Nepalese were actually employed in the Myanmar banks also, and
Ah,
the the interesting or funny thing is that many the local vendors, the software companies, were moving or making market in a Myanmar for AML safety solution. They were actually conducting this campaign, or let's say event, and where they are actually demonstrating their AML safety solution products. So these were allowed. And what I'm saying is that these things were allowed. So whenever we find like if some entities, or let's say some banks or whatever are sanctioned, we need to dig down, right? We need to drill out like what are the provisions, what things are allowed, what things are not allowed, right? And then we have to decide. But many organizations find it very difficult to do this, so they opt for blanket policy, right? So if anything is in the sanction, then as you said, we'll took a zero tolerance policy in this regard, and we'll stop the transaction immediately, or maybe maybe file a STR report against that person, right? And this is actually, I think that it's not meeting a compliance requirement, uh, not properly, but also affecting also business part also.
very true. And that's a very interesting, opportunity that the Nepali businessmen who work in the EML uh, tried to, see. They saw the opportunity and they grabbed it.
Right,
Yes. So that's whenever Kiran, it's how they say that when two people are fighting, the third person takes advantage of the situation,
right,
and that is exactly what happened. Even in cases like North Korea, which has been heavily sanctioned by European Union, the US, and UK as well. North Korea is very notorious for evading sanction, and it has
right,
been successfully doing so by using China
yeah,
as its alibi,
right,
wherein where there have also been cases and documentaries wherein North Korean diplomats who have their consulate in different countries, they are also, you know, very closely involved with the sanction evasion uh, channels. So, and North Korea is also good at recruiting people in order to uh, conduct the transactions. So of course, and you know what, how they say, um, when things become hard, then you become more innovative, you become more creative. If the space that you're working in is constrained, if there are constraints in place, you will become more innovative and more creative in finding out solutions. But
right,
if in a case wherein you do not have any limits, you can do whatever you want. In that case, your brain will not function. because your brain cannot fathom so much freedom and so much, opportunities. So it's this is the reason immigrants who go from countries like India, Nepal, to countries like the developed countries, they usually have to perform well, because that is the only way they have, that is their only chance, that is the only opportunity they have. So yeah, I completely relate to what you said. Yeah.
Right. So you
The
rightly said, right?
businesses. Yes.
Like the innovation is mother of necessity, right? People, and when we talk about North Korea, right? I was reading before this podcast. I was searching for the materials regarding the regarding this podcast, and there was this very interesting let's say story, or actual case, and which just blew my mind, because I never thought that sanction evasion would happen in such a scale, right? And this was
Hmm.
actually
Hmm.
performed by North Korea, right? See,
Hmm.
there is like North Korea has a like a massive weapon WMD, right? Weapon mass destruction program, and that requires
Yes.
a lot of resources, right?
Absolutely.
And they are buying a lot of resources from various countries, and the main supplier is China, and they have to pay like to Chinese company for the payment they receive, right? So what they did was they have a very close relation with the African nation, and one of such countries is Nambia, right? I hope
Hmm.
you have heard that name. So
Of course.
so Nambia was there was a revolution in Nambia, and they were fighting for the independence from South Africa, right?
Hmm.
And at that time, North Korea supplied with them with the rebel supplied the rebels with all the weapons and necessary the tactical supports, everything, right? And because of that, the the current ruler of Nambia was able to gain independence from South Africa. Now what happened was, since every arsenal was financed by North Korea, right, they were not able to switch with other companies or other countries. And after democracy, or let's say independence, there were massive projects of reconstruction, rebuilding, and so on. And all these projects went to North Korean, businessmen, right? And they conducted all these projects, and all the payment were deposited in the Nambia bank in the name of these, uh, let's say, parties, right? And this money, the money deposited in Nambia money, or let's say Nambia banks, were actually transferred from that country to United Kingdom, and from there it was moved to different countries or different parties from where they were buying these let's say products for proliferation financing, right? And so there was like very another interesting case. So one company like build a like let's say war machine for this Kim Jong, right, who is the president over there. And while making the payments to that company, the 13 banks were involved to make that payment to that company, right? So that this is very this is very interesting, right? You for tax evasion, you are actually manipulating the country whole economic and political situation. And I never heard of that. I thought like evasion of sanction happens because in like there is a dual use goods and other simple things, right? I actually imagined that. But when I was researching for this, and it came out like this was the real case study, right? And how you are going to prevent this kind of tax evasion? It's a very difficult, right? And that's why North Korea has a very close ties with very African nations, and they are also involved in illegal poaching, right? Because Africa is rich in this kind of resources, let's say conflict diamonds, poaching, and they are actually using different kind of these poachers to kill those animals and like export those ivory to other nation. and from which they get payments, and which is used for that proliferation financing.
Very true, Kiran. Transshipment is a major way which North Korea uses. So in cases of transshipment wherein the ships they land in another country for a stopover, and that is the opportunity that the sanction evasion counterparts who work together, they get the opportunity to ship the goods, dual use goods, or maybe goods related to proliferation financing, or it might be related to, as you said, the animal,
Right, right,
which is called as a natural resources mining,
right.
illegal natural resource mining
Yeah,
takes
animal
place.
trafficking.
Again, yes. Also, transshipment happens on international waters. As you know,
Right, right.
Kiran, international
Mm.
waters is not governed by any country. You are free to murder. You can murder someone in international waters, and nobody.
Okay, so I lost the train of thought. Where were we, Vivek?
Yes, yes. So I was talking about transshipment. So Kiran,
Right,
transshipment is a very good strategy used by North Korea and Iran, very, very aggressively.
right,
Because international waters, as I said, international waters are not governed by any country. You can do anything on those waters, and nobody will question you. And that is what exactly happens in international waters. The ship, usually the vessel, they turn off their the they turn off their signaling system, the
right.
radar,
Tracking system. Yeah,
navigation system. Yes, yes.
right, right.
So when you turn off the navigation system, any of the patrolling officers or authorities, they cannot detect what is
Hmm.
going on. And
Right,
that is a very good place where you can load and unload goods,
right, right,
and then start, and the transshipment can happen for drugs or for dual use goods, for proliferation financing, for animal resources which are highly critical, like ivory you mentioned. So
right.
yeah, that is one of the easiest way and most used way.
Yeah, there are different techniques, right, for sanction evasion. Right, there
Yes.
is like there was like case regarding the crude oil. That was actually no. So there are different. I have listed out those items. How this actually sanction evasion happens. One is through barter system, right? You don't provide cash, you provide a goods in exchange of goods, right? It's like in case of Russia, like they were for like selling oil, they were like getting payment in a gold or silver, something like that. With I'm not sure with China or India, and there is a physical cash transfer, and most of the and the these things like the in ivory in wildlife trapping, these are being used. Gems, bullions, these valuable items are also being used for sanction evasion. And another thing which are widely used in sanction evasion is front companies, right? I gave you the example of North Korea, right? So they have like one bank set up in a African nation, and that they deposit that money in that bank, and from there the money moves to other banks in those countries where there is a lack of good AML safety regime, which are strategic deficiency in AML safety regime. And from there the money moves to the international channel, right, international financial system. So a lot of front companies or sale companies are being used for sanction evasion. And also the diplomatic missions, right? Those embassies are also involved in this kind of tax evasion, sorry, sanction
Very true.
evasion. And that's why
Yes.
the sanction or on that's why there is a huge problem on identifying such kind of sanction evasion, because it's a very complicated. But again, the process is similar to a money laundering. They follow that same three stages of money laundering in sanction evasion also. First, you need to deposit money to somewhere, right? Then you need to move that money to different places, different banks, so that it doesn't get tracked or traced. And after that, you utilize that money in a final stage of integration. So same process is like same money laundering process also uh, is repeated in sanction evasion.
Very
Everywhere.
true, very true.
Yeah.
And another important vehicle that has come into play is cryptocurrencies.
Right, right, right. Yes.
Cryptocurrencies operating in countries like Eastern Europe. As you know, Kiran, Eastern Europe again has a very lax AML safety environment. It is very, very closely related to Russian government and has an influence with the Russian government. And we can see a lot of cryptocurrencies operators. They operate in countries like the former Soviet Union member countries. You know,
Right,
Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, all these Central European countries. So we can see that cryptocurrency has also become a very good channel for sanction evasion.
right,
And currencies like XMR, Monero, these
right.
are highly private, highly
Yeah,
privacy
private.
focused coins
Right,
compared to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a very transparent, and it you can see everything on the blockchain. But currencies like Monero and other privacy enabled coins,
right,
it's
right,
very hard to track once they go through the system. And there are mixers, as you know,
right, right.
recently a mixer in US
Tumblr.
was banned. It was, I think, known as Tornado Cash.
Yes, yes.
It was
Tornado.
banned.
Yes, yes, yes.
Tornado Cash
Very
was a
well.
very big company that was operating in US,
Right.
and but its operation was in some Eastern European country again.
Okay.
So we can see a very good correlation of where they set up is, also the way they market their services is also on the dark web and the black hat forums. So black hat forums and all these gray areas of the internet, they market their services and people use it.
Right. You know the have you heard this group Lazarus group? Lazarus. Yeah.
Of course, of course,
Yeah.
of
They these are actually the cybercrime group financed by North Korea, right? So they are involved.
Russia.
Lazarus is in Russia.
Uh, I think Lazarus is Russian, right? No, Lazarus.
Okay, okay, I might be mistaken, but
No, no, I might be confusing. Yeah, yeah, North Korea. Sorry, sorry.
okay.
I am confusing it with that guy who got killed by Putin, who revolted against him.
Ah, yeah, yeah, the mercenary.
Ah,
The mercenary.
the missionary. Yeah,
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 yeah.
that guy. No, not
Okay.
that.
So anyway, so the North Korea, what they do is, right. They though there are students who are very bright, right, in a STEAM sector.
Yes,
So they
yes, yes.
there are different ways, right? First, they hire them to in their military program, or in this like a Lazarus group in their cyber let's say cyber criminal group, right? And another thing is what they do is they actually send these students to US and other developed countries, again in the false identity, and they spend like a lot of money on their education, and after they are like trained or skilled, they
Kiran, sorry to interrupt. And that is the reason citizenship by buying program by these countries is a very good gateway for North Korean.
are right,
You can buy citizenship from
right,
Bahamas, from
mhm,
Narua, and all these
right,
countries.
right,
Once you have bought citizenship, you have completely erased your past. You are
right,
not
right,
North Korean anymore,
right, right. Yeah, yeah. This
right?
happens.
You have
This happens.
completely become, yeah, different. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Please go ahead. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and these persons are actually hired in like in a software big software companies or other like
Hmm.
other let's say high profile companies, because they are
Yes,
already so much talented, right? And they are and their education are being financed by North Koreans. So after
yes.
they get the job in this company, they're actually threatened, or or whatever the courts or whatever, okay. So they they steal those technology and send them back to North Korea, right? And North Korea utilizes that technology, and that's why they have a very let's say strong cyber criminal group operating by North Korea, and they are involved in a major cyber attacks. And there was one case of crypto like a crypto heist which was done by Lazarus group, right? And this cryptocurrency which they stole from from this organization, and these are again being used for this weapon of mass destruction program, right? So as you said, the cryptocurrency is now now the good instrument for tax evasion, sorry, sanction evasion.
Very true. Again, I would like to add that this citizenship buying programs by various countries, especially by these island nations who want to support their economy by selling this citizenship at a price.
Right.
So every country, most of the country has it. Even Trump has announced the golden visa program, wherein you can buy it for some huge amount of money. And the thing is that, in fact, the US itself is one of the biggest sanction evasion uh, operator.
Oh,
If you know about the state called Delaware,
Delaware. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Delaware
yeah.
is a very notorious state.
Okay.
If you see all the major corporations, Microsoft, Apple, they are all registered in Delaware because Delaware doesn't have a beneficial ownership registry
uh,
like other states.
yeah, yeah.
It's very opaque. You
All right.
can't come to know who is the actual owner. So you can open up a shell company in Delaware, and nobody will question who is the owner. You could be from North Korea, you could be from Iran. You can open a company over there by paying some money, very nominal fee, and you gain access to the US market. You open up a firm, you can say that you are operating in US, and Delaware is an oasis inside the whole American system. Just like the one I mentioned about Gujarat. In a place like Gujarat, there is in India, there is a place which doesn't have this kind of regulatory pressures like the other states in the country.
Yeah.
Similar
Right.
to that,
Yeah. Delaware.
US has Delaware.
Delaware is in Texas, if I am not mistaken.
Delaware is a state.
Okay, it's a separate state. Okay.
It's a separate state, Delaware.
Okay.
And you will, have you gone through uh, annual reports
Uh,
of companies,
which one?
of US companies' annual reports?
No, no, I didn't. I didn't
So
have it.
you, in the first page itself, you will find incorporated in Delaware.
Okay.
Incorporated in Delaware. Everywhere. In most of the companies, they go to Delaware because Delaware doesn't have very strict rules in terms of knowing the beneficial owner or the ultimate beneficial owner. Also, they are not accountable to report it to the government because the people from the government, they have their companies in Delaware.
Hmm.
So Biden comes from the state of Delaware. Delaware is one of the richest state, but it doesn't have any business. It earns most of its money from this kind of business. So
uh,
it's a very big racket, kind of,
so kind of a
it's
tax haven.
organized. Yeah, tax haven
Uh,
within United States, which the rich people can exploit to their own benefit. Even Biden, who comes from Delaware, ran for the president. He was supposed to go really hard on on this kind of things like the sanction evasion, the money laundering, but he didn't because he knew his constituency is in Delaware. He cannot go, you cannot fight those rules and regulations.
yeah, whoever is powerful writes the history, right? So,
Exactly. Very true. Very
so
true. In
who is
India,
going to
it was
challenge you?
Congress.
Right,
Yes, in India, it was Congress who wrote the history when I was studying.
right.
They wrote the history that uh, Congress was the biggest party, and they did the best. But later on, BJP came into power. They exposed the other areas. So again, as you said, rightly said, history is written by the powerful. Yes.
Right. So, yeah. So we like I'm aware about like North Korean evasion technique, sanction evasion technique. Maybe like Russia also, which are widely publicized in news. But I'm not sure about Iran. How they, like, they are actually sanctioned for having nuclear power plant over there, right? That's the reason why they are being sanctioned. So how they perform tax evasion? Do you have an idea on this matter?
Yes, I have some data with me right now. Uh, so Iran has been a sanctions target for funding groups like Hamas and Hezbollah,
Oh, okay. That
as
is
you know.
also, yeah. That is also the
Yes,
another
yes,
major
yes.
factor, right?
So another one, yeah.
Right.
So Hamas, as you know, is very closely involved with the Israel warfare.
Israeli situation, right?
Yes, and so Iran usually supports the proxy groups. As you
Hmm.
know, Iran is like the person who works in the back, but you are the front. So
Hmm.
it will use Syria, it will use Lebanon, it will use Jordan. So all the neighboring countries, it will use them as their proxy in
Right.
order to conduct its trade. Even India is a very big customer of Iran
Right.
for
Right.
its
Yeah.
oil,
Yeah. Yeah.
and due to the Trump's sanction environment right now, uh, I think I'm not up to date right now. What strategy is India using in order to bypass those
Mm.
sanctions?
Right.
But it seems like uh, earlier, what used to happen was India used to pay Iran in some other currency. That was what I knew the last time. But I don't know what is the current strategy. What is the current government strategy?
Right. You raised a very valid point. The proxy war. So in Syria, the you yeah, I believe you have heard this. This organization ISIS, right?
Of
ISIS,
course.
right? Everybody has heard this terrorist organization. Before they were, labeled as a terrorist, they were actually rebel groups, right? And they were being
Yes.
financed by CIA, by America,
Yes.
actually. And
Yes.
how
Yes.
they used to finance them was they used to send the money from US bank through front companies and to certain places. I'm not sure, maybe in Israel or to other banks. And from there the payment used to go through this terrorist organization. So during the proxy war there are a lot of nations involved in a country, right? In a Syria it was a proxy war. And if you talk about the Ukraine is also proxy war. The Actually the
It
Ukraine's,
looks like that. Yes.
yeah, actually the Ukraine, before this everything, before this mess, okay, with Donald Trump, the war was being fought by United States against Russia. They were financing everything, right? Like weapons, soldiers, and so on, right? So the whole the proxy war was going on, and the Trump actually has stopped that, right? So in Syria, there were a lot of countries who had interest in that. So there was like Iran, I think like Russia also was involved in it. America was also involved in it, and the same case with the Taliban also, right? Talibans were created by actually Americans, right, to defeat Russia, because the Russia had captured the Afghanistan, and they've actually financed rebels to drop to defeat Russia, or to drop to drive them from that country. And after that, the Talibans became powerful, and they started to doing those things, and then 2001 happened, and after that, American banned them as a terrorist.
Very true.
So
Very true.
so
Very true.
these things, sanction things are, again, it's written by or implemented by the powerful nations. And for developing countries like Nepal, right, we have to follow them because we have interest with these developed nations. Let's say if we don't implement the sanction, maybe the US will support, will cut off their support in other ways.
This is the one reason, Kiran, I feel like Russia, India, China, and Nepal and all these countries should come together and bring our own currency into the market. The US is only dependent upon the US dollar, and that is the reason OFAC is so strong.
Right.
Once we get out of the US dollar system and we create our own currency, which the BRICS country can use. The BRICS countries are what? Bangladesh, Russia,
Right.
India, China, Sri Lanka.
Right.
And these countries, if we create our own currency for
Right.
trade and transactions, I feel like the dependency on the US dollar will be reduced considerably. And at the same time, uh, uh, of course, the bad actors will also become more powerful than in that case as well.
Right.
So,
You, the
yes,
sanctions are not applicable for powerful nations, because
of course.
everyone knows that China is providing resources to North Korea, right?
Yes, yes.
And they are not
It's like
able,
an open secret.
right? And they are not able to put a sanction in China,
No, no,
because the this is a very interesting point, because in UN Security Council, whenever they has to levy the sanction to any country, it has to be a unanimous decision, and there are five
it
countries.
has to, yeah, and China vetoes it. Yeah,
Yeah, China is
yeah.
in one of the member country, right? And and
Yes.
that country is not going to put a sanction on himself or itself, right? So the
Kiran, the
sanction is a
best way,
yeah,
yes, yeah, the best way to evade a sanction is you become so bigger that
right,
without you, the world economy cannot function. Without
right,
China, the economy cannot function of any other country.
right,
It's such a major, uh, it plays such a major role in each and every country. In fact, India is dependent on China. Uh, US is dependent on China. We all are dependent on China.
right,
So how can you sanction China?
right.
It's
Even
the
right, even in the Myanmar situation, the actually the everything is done by the China. They are actually supporting
yes,
all the military regime, and they are
the
responsible for
Janta.
all. Yeah,
Yeah,
they are responsible, and that's why nobody can, they are just putting sanction as a, let's say, counter measure, but they are the the whole country economy is being run by the Chinese government, right?
very true, very true. I completely agree with that. Yes.
Yeah. So, can you give a like concluding remarks? I think we have cover all the aspects of our
Yes, we
topic.
have. Uh,
Yeah,
I think the emerging trends that we can see is more public-private partnership
right,
between the FIUs and the law enforcement and the banks would really help in transfer of knowledge of the sanctions. And any other points, Kiran, that you would like to highlight?
right. You raised a very valid point. To overcome this situation, there needs to be public and private partnership, because the sanction is a very technical aspect, and there has to be a talk between the private sector and government sector how to deal with the sanction, because we have cases in Nepal, right? Uh, because of the sanction, many banks have lost their money, right? So there was this shipment was which was coming from, so let me see how much time we have left. So there was shipment, right, which actually was coming from some country to Nepal, and that shipment that actually that vessel was that was found by some correspondent bank. They, because they had like vessel tracking system, so they found that
Nice.
ship was stayed found that that ship stayed overnight in a harbor near Iran, and
Ah.
because of which they stopped that whole payment, right? And
Mm,
there is
mm,
nothing wrong with there was no issue with the beneficiary or applicant. They were not involved in such kind of
mm.
activities, but the beneficiary was the it was I think that the half payment was already sent by the importer, and neither the importer received the whole goods, and also the beneficiary also lost his goods, right? So there was loss from both sides. And since
Yes.
Nepal was in a very we are like a developing countries, and we don't have say on this area, right? And we just have to follow whatever the corresponding bank told us, right? since they told us
Yeah.
that it was their they won't take that risk of sending the money, so the amount actually
Yes.
got frozen. And there were a lot of cases, court cases, but it doesn't work in this scenario, right? So
Yes. Yes.
ultimately there was a loss to
I
yeah.
think, yeah, yeah, you were just telling about uh, the shipment. Yeah.
Right. So I didn't want to leave the conversation in the middle. So let's
Yes.
complete with the concluding remarks. And so anyway, so we are talking about this right in the in that situation, because many country still one of the reason the Nepal is being put in a gray list is that we don't have a mechanism for targeted financial targeted sanction sorry, we don't have a measures for targeted sanction, right? And or we don't have developed any kind of mechanisms to combat terrorism and financing. That's a one that's a major reason why we have been put in the gray list, one of the major reason. And I think, right, in Nepal we don't have a like a terrorism issues. uh, if you look at our whole history, we have never have such issues of terrorism attacks in Nepal, right? During the Maoist, it was a like different case. It was a like what you call it, like a civil war, right? It was a different scenario, but but beside that, we never had such kind of a terrorism activities or in our country, okay, or incident. But according to them, like the APG, they are saying that Nepal could be a channel to fund those terrorism financing activities, because we
Mm.
have a lot of countries right in between. We have Pakistan, India, China. So they are saying that Nepal could be a channel or vehicle for moving that from funds from one country to another. So uh, and we are actually not prepared for that, because since we didn't have that kind of threat, we never implemented any kind of countermeasures. And these regulatory bodies are coming with this mechanism. They are asking banks to implement transaction screening mechanisms, right? Now you need to, and people are still confused what the transaction screening is. So if you have to follow word by word of the regulation pushed by regulators, it means that now before conducting any transaction, you have to verify that ordering party and beneficiary party against that sanction list, right? And it's a very difficult thing to do. You have to, revamp your whole AML solution system. Now, it's not about transaction monitoring; it's about transaction screening also. And it is very I find it very difficult for a country like Nepal to implement such kind of a solution.
Very true. Very true, Kiran. The challenges have increased, and as you rightly said, that Nepal is going through a really hard time.
Right.
And yes, that's very true.
Okay, so your concluding remarks for this podcast, today's podcast, Vivek.
I feel like the sanction environment will radically evolve since the Trump presidency. This is the
Right.
major catalyst that is driving everything right now, because the US holds all the cards in terms of sanctions environment with its US dollar dominance. And we will see a radical change in the forthcoming months, I feel.
Yeah, and because I heard from somewhere, so the the situation is moving so fast. No one can predict what will happen in the future, right? Maybe the we will see different global power rising in like in a few years, right? This can happen, right? And this will impact the whole world economy, or let's say whole world situation. And definitely it will impact the sanction environment. And for countries like Nepal, right, and for countries like Nepal, as you previously said, we need a good collaboration between public and private sector, since we are already in gray list. and there are a lot of things which are happening very fast, and many commercial, let's say, or financial institution or DNFBP sector are not or have enough resources to cope up with those changes.
Very true.
So
Very true.
as you like said earlier, we need to work in a good collaboration with national and international counterparts also to
I agree. I agree.
mitigate with to cope up with this challenge.
I agree. All right, we will wrap up today's podcast, and thank you so much, Kiran, for staying
Thank you
so
so much,
late.
Vivek. No, no, no
And
worries. Actually, I postponed this podcast because something came up during the daytime. So, yeah. Thank you, Vivek, for accommodating
thank you,
me.
Kiran.
Yeah, and so
And
yeah. Please continue.
hope to see you next weekend. Yeah,
Yeah, sure, sure. We have a
sure.
Holi.
On 14th.
Yeah, yeah, it's on
Yeah.
Friday, but yeah, Saturday I
Yeah.
will be free. So we'll come up
Awesome,
with the
awesome.
next like an interesting topic also, or for
Yes,
that
absolutely.
podcast also. Yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely.
and this was a nice
See
topic.
you.
Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
See
Okay,
you,
bye.
Kiran. Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
You take care.